Going to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, April 8th, 2024. Quick roll call. Commissioner Borka. Present. Commissioner Biden. Present. Commissioner Niaz.
Present.
Our newly sworn in Commissioner Young. Present. Vice Chairman Nickerson. Here. We have a quorum 5-0. According to the bylaws, we can't enact any business for the town. Quick vote for the adoption of the agenda should be in front of us. Commissioner Borka. Approved. Commissioner Biden. Approved. Commissioner Niaz. Commissioner Young. Approved. Vice Chairman Nickerson. Approved. And I approve the adoption. The agenda is adopted 5-0. Quick approval of the previous minutes for March meeting. Quick vote. Commissioner Borka. Approved. Commissioner Beisel. Approved. Commissioner Niaz.
Approved.
Commissioner Young. Approved. Vice Chairman Nickerson. Approved. And I approve 5-0 for the approval of the minutes from the previous month. I want to turn it over to town staff on the introduction of the first item on the agenda for the public hearing.
May I point of order?
Point of order, 1 second.
I believe the votes are 6-0.
My miscount. 6-0. I'm sorry. 6-0. Autocorrect on the math at all. Town staff, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. And I think we have a presentation. Great, and it's also in your packet. So this is a ZTA or zoning text amendment 24001. Let's see, I guess I can use. Yes. This is a zoning text amendment relating to Chapter 70 zoning, Article 1 and 5 of the Town Code, relating to amendments to allow relocation of a lawfully erected billboard sign subject to a highway realignment or condemnation. The proposed amendment states, notwithstanding section 70-582 and section 70-14, except that an electronic display sign shall continue to require a sign permit as provided in section 70-14, that should be A. A lawfully erected billboard sign with a state permit from the Virginia Department of Transportation may be relocated by reason of a public street or highway realignment or condemnation proceedings. Such relocated billboard sign may be converted to an electronic display sign and shall be a conforming sign if, 1, the owner of such sign provides at least 30 days prior written notice to the zoning administrator of such public street or highway realignment or condemnation proceedings. 2, the dimensions of the reconstructed sign shall not be greater than as stated on the state permit. 3, such reconstruction shall be completed no later than 18 months after the date of issuance of a permit by the town. And 4, such relocated signs shall be relocated on property zoned commercial or industrial in compliance with federal and state laws and regulations. Currently, there are 5 active signs with VDOT permits within the town of Dumfries. 2 of the signs may be impacted by pending VDOT projects. 1 is at US 1 and 234, currently impacted by the interchange improvements. And that permit was issued 11/30/1993. And the dimensions of the sign are 32 by 10. The second sign is at Main Street and Duke Street. It was also issued in 1993. Third sign, Main Street and Curtis Drive, also issued in 1993. And US 1 and Dumfries Shopping Center, issued in 1993, and US 1 and Wayside Drive, issued in 1951. This illustrates the location of the first identified billboard sign at Old Stagecoach Road and Route 1. The sign that is being impacted by the interchange improvements. This is the second sign identified at Tebbs Lane or Curtis and West Main Street. This is the small sign. It's actually owned by a church at, and it's actually not Tebbs. It is Duke Street and Main Street. And this is the sign at Dumfries Shopping Plaza and Route 1 or Fraley Boulevard. And finally, the sign at Wayside Drive and Route 1. So this is the sign that is impacted by the Route 234, Route 1 interchange improvement. And you may be able to see the small, let's see if I can point this out. It's not really working, but there is a small red dot or rectangle to the left along the roadway illustrated there. And that is the existing location, and the proposed location is the red rectangle in the white space. And this is the proposed sign. So in summary, the proposed zoning text amendment would allow a lawfully erected billboard sign with a state permit from the Virginia Department of Transportation to be relocated by reason of public street or highway realignment or condemnation proceedings. And such a relocated billboard sign may be converted to an electronic display sign and shall be a conforming sign if the owner of such sign provides at least 30 days prior written notice to the zoning administrator of such public street or highway realignment or condemnation proceedings. If the dimensions of the reconstructed sign are not greater than as stated on the state permit, if such reconstruction will be completed no later than 18 months after the date of issuance of the permit by the town, and if such relocated sign will be relocated on property zoned commercial or industrial in compliance with federal and state laws and regulations. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommends approval of the proposed text amendment. We have a representative from the applicant here, and I'm happy to respond to any questions as well.
Thank you. Before we bring up the applicant, this rule of order, we have to open it up for public hearing, so we'll do that at 7:12. So public hearing is open. We want to bring up the applicant.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Chip Dix. I'm with the law firm of Gentry Locke, and I'm at our office in Richmond and drove up tonight to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity of presenting to you briefly. I'll indicate that I've worked with Mr. Tabor extensively on the language, and I believe the language is in good shape. And likewise, I've worked with the town attorney, and so we believe that the language reflects what the applicant is interested in. Representing Lamar Corporation, we're one of the largest outdoor advertising companies in the United States, headquartered in Baton Rouge. Lamar is very interested in moving its sign to a good location, and we think we've worked that out with the landowner, and we've got folks that are interested in advertising. We believe that the electronic feature of the relocated sign on the recipient parcel, if you will, it is commercial or industrial, so it fits the wording of the text amendment that is being proposed to you tonight, and also that it will help advertise and facilitate the casino operation. It will also support the overall master plan of that area, which is, is a significant commitment to the town of Dumfries. And so we look forward to being a good neighbor, as we've been a good neighbor for all these years. And we're looking forward to being on our new location. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Open it up for questions for the planning commissioning. Commissioner Borka, any questions?
I do. This is for town staff. For all of these, which are for more than one sign, is there a burden on the owners? For example, if the town decides to do something on Main Street here that affects the Duke Street and Main Street sign, just to pick one, not any one given sign, is that a burden of cost on that owner of that particular sign? Or is the town or whatever entity is deciding to make a change to the road, assisting the owner of the sign with having to move it because they have to move it?
I'm happy to
Yeah.
answer that. Or the town attorney can answer. But
You're going through the process.
the problem is that, well, first of all, it's not a problem. First of all, there's federal relocation assistance when there's federal funds involved. Those are provided as part of the road funding, if you will. And then second, with respect to any funds that are cost and whatnot incurred outside of that and outside of the relocation expense under the federal law, then that would be the burden of the sign owner to engage and pay for that.
Okay, so there's some assistance and it could exceed it. It just depends.
It could exceed it, but if there's any, Sandy may want to say something.
Thank you.
With respect to condemnations, oftentimes there's a compensation element to those who are being displaced by that activity. And so the value or the loss of value of the property is a part of that formula for payment. So there really isn't a burden per se that has not had the opportunity to be remedied through that valuation process.
All right, thank you. The concern is for the businesses and residents and in the town, that as we make changes, we don't want to come to harm to them as the commission is reviewing plans. So thank you.
Mr.
That answers
Chairman,
my-
if I could clarify one other thing,
Yes.
because the sign is being relocated, then there's no compensation for the taking, if you will. There's only compensation for the relocation under state and federal law.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's all. I have.
Commissioner Beisel, any questions?
No comment. I think the signs should do well. The electronic signs that, pertaining to the casino themselves, they may be a variety of ads, events at the casino. They may be parking next left. They may say, a variety of different things in relation to the casino.
That is correct. And that the copy, if you will, is up to, and again, electronic signs are computerized, right? They're like digital screens that we all have on our desk. And so what happens is there's no, you got to go out and take down a vinyl sign or anything else. It's all electronic and it's done. And we're provided the copy. Lamar would be provided the copy. And likewise, I've had discussions with representatives for Clear Channel, who you're going to hear from next, with regard to making sure that this sign ordinance works for them as well as it works for Lamar. So it's, again, you've got one church sign and then you've got 4 real true billboards, right? And so only 2 are impacted currently by any kind of highway realignment. And the signs that go up, if they're digital signs, they'll be programmed at the main office. The copy will come to us from the advertisers, whether it's McDonald's or whoever, right? And we'll post that when it's been approved.
Okay. And that content would be vetted then, based on, it will go through some approval processes.
It will, and let me just say this, and the gentleman from Clear Channel can speak on behalf of Clear Channel. Lamar does not accept any kind of inappropriate ads, any kind of sex ads, or any of that kind of strip clubs or any of that kind of stuff. All those things are banned by corporate policy by Lamar. And so you're not going to see those kind of ads, if you will, on any sign that's in the town of Dumfries. And Lamar doesn't provide those advertisers an opportunity to advertise.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Diaz, any questions or comments for the applicant?
Want to ask. Thank you.
Commissioner Young, any questions or comments for the applicant?
The timing of the sign being erected compared to what the plan is for the roads, what type of timeline are we talking about between the two?
So until the road improvements are ready to go, then as soon as we can do this text amendment, which hopefully will be later this month, next Tuesday, then what we do is we would begin to dismantle the sign in its current location and relocate it to its new location. And of course, we do that as provided in the text amendment pursuant to a sign permit. We also would have to have a VDOT permit first. And so what we do is we come to Reggie with a copy of the VDOT permit application, and Reggie, as planning director, would sign indicating that this is conformance with the text amendment that you all are considering tonight. And then at that point, it would go to VDOT. We get a VDOT permit first. We come back and get a sign permit from the town, and then we would construct, based upon that. So that would be the timing. VDOT permits are usually fairly quick. I would say within 60 days of the time we submit. You've seen a sketch, if you will, a design of the current sign of what we propose. And those signs are done manufacturing wise. You see that it has a nice base to it. It's not like a pole stuck up someplace. It has landscaping and other things. Lamar is also a good corporate citizen, as is Clear Channel. And what we do in the advertising industry is we offer public service ads and whatnot to the locality in which we're located. And that's to provide for all kinds of events, not events that are commercial in a sense. So if you think about if we could sell an ad to somebody, then that's not an ad that would be free, if you will, under public service. It would be an ad that would be, you've got a town event, or you've got some other public message that you'd like and the town would like to communicate with its residents. Then those are the kind of ads where, again, there's no copy cost to the town for those public service ads. We work with your public relations folks. And then what we do is we post those ads on the time frame that you request. And again, it's easy because it's computerized. So that's the kind of relationship that most outdoor companies have with their whatever locality they're located in, particularly on a digital or electronic billboard. We can provide those kind of public service ads.
And this is a dual-sided sign, correct?
It is a dual-sided sign. And I'll say one other thing we haven't talked about at this point. Every billboard company has a time frame and an interval. State law says 4 seconds, right? Anything less than 4 seconds could be considered to be driver distraction, and that's state and federal law. So we would, of course, comply with that. Lamar has a policy. If you're putting up an ad, what we want you to see is we want you to see the ad long enough so it doesn't look like it's rotating or anything else, which is governed again by state and federal law. So what we do is we say once every 10 seconds. So if you do the math and you think about it, going back to 6, right? So if you think about 6 ads, 10 seconds each, right? And that gives people time enough at their stoplight, they're approaching or whatever, to see the ad long enough to visualize it and have what in the advertising industry is called an exposure. Because if it flips too fast, then the advertiser's not getting the value for their money. And so again, both companies work on making sure that the advertisers get the value. And when we do public service ads for the locality in which we're located, we want to make sure that your local public service ad likewise gets the visibility and the exposure that it deserves.
Thank you. Could I have other questions?
Go ahead.
Yes.
So, and to the question regarding timing, it's currently anticipated that the gaming facility will open around September of 2024, and it's anticipated that the interchange improvement will be completed prior to that time, possibly July or August. And the billboard could be constructed, once the interchange is completed. And it's anticipated that that will be prior to the opening of the casino or gaming facility, excuse me.
Vice Chairman Nicholson, any questions, comments for the applicant?
So that's Representative Lamar, right?
Yes, sir.
You're responsible really for 3 of these 4 signs, because the one is a church sign, correct?
Yep.
So that one doesn't fall under what you're talking about, does it?
It currently, if it's an off-premise sign and it's located on commercial or industrial property, then it would fall into this text language. There's 3 Clear Channel billboards and 1 Lamar billboard. So ours is at the edge of what, 234 and
Route 1.
Route 1.
The one with the Sheets logo on there, right? And there's a Sheets.
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So again, I get that, but this one for the church, it falls under the text amendment, but it's not falling under your direction, so to speak. Is that still a private entity because that's church? Even though it may fall into an area that's regulated by federal regulation, who's gonna be, it's kind of to what Commissioner Borker was saying, will that cost be taken care of under something you're doing or something you're doing? Or is that funding coming from somewhere else to the church?
Okay, so I don't think the language was intended to get that far down into what happens during a condemnation process or relocation. What I can say is that there was extra care committed to the preparation of the language so that it could be utilized by any sign owner in the town or the conditions ripe for it to happen. So I spoke to the condemnation process earlier, and I tried to explain just in very general language that in that process, the condemnor, the agency who's actually taking or requiring something from the owner would have to compensate them. This is required by law. And so whatever that valuation process is, arguably whatever burdens, financial burdens you think would be borne by the sign holder, they will get something for that. Mr. Dix mentioned that there were also funds available for relocations. I don't have any experience with those in particular, but obviously those would be, pots for someone to sort of defray any costs that were not directly compensated by condemnor. So I hope that answers your question, but we were trying to make sure that whatever we prepared and brought to you, it would have a sort of a neutral effect on all of the sign holders. And so no one particular sign company or one particular sign holder would have an advantage over another. So hopefully with all of that, you see that maybe they won't bear all of the financial burden or go uncompensated. Thank you.
The second question is, as far as the ads that are ran, is there gonna be a maximum time period that any one particular company can run an ad, or is that subject to how long they want to pay for an ad to be ran? Or how's that process gonna work?
So the process works basically that in Lamar's corporate world, and again, Clear Channel may be a little bit different. What we do is we sell 10-second slots. So there's 6 of them a minute. So we sell a 10-second slot. If somebody comes to us and wants 30 seconds, I guess we would sell them that, but that's not normally the process. Normally what happens is a digital sign has 6 different advertisers, right? And they each want their exposure. I probably will get the number of exposures incorrect, but there's like 30,000 exposures in 1 month for a 10-second slot. So if you think about every time you hear an ad on radio or you see one on TV or whatever, the question is, how many times does that ad run in a period of a month and how many exposures does that amount to? So we sell exposures. If somebody wants more than one 10-second exposure, we'll do that. Normally what people do, if you think about McDonald's, for example, they say, we're opening a new McDonald's or we've renovated one, and we want to make sure people know that where McDonald's is. And so we have some directional kind of signs. Hey, there's a new McDonald's down here. It's been renovated or whatever else. Likewise, sometimes restaurants or different locations are destination locations, and we can provide directions, for a 10-second slot to go here or there, whatever. And remember, this text amendment only applies to off-premises signs. So you asked, sir, about the church. If you think about it, most churches are going to have the signs on the property where the church is located. In this particular case, that particular sign that's subject to this ordinance is off premises from the church. So if the church wanted to have an off-premise sign and continue an off-premise sign, which they probably had some donor allow them to put the sign off their church property, right? And they're probably not paying any rent for it. Just saying. So if you think about that, most churches are going to have the sign, such and such a church. They're going to have it on their property. This only applies to churches, this one church who has their sign off the premises of where the church is located. Sometimes that happens when a church doesn't have a building. And what they want to do is alert the congregation to where they're meeting and where they're renting at a particular time. And so there's all kinds, and that might change. So that sign might change, the church sign might change because the location of where the church is holding worship and other activities has changed. So that's the logical reason. And honestly, I don't think any of us have talked with the church to find out if they have any needs. But again, this text amendment only applies if there's a highway realignment or a condemnation that would indicate that that church sign needed to be moved for some reason. And I'm not aware of any highway alignment program that would currently require the church to move its sign. So if that helps.
That does. As far as the question I was asking, though, in relation to the time period, was not the interval of the ad. It was the interval as far as how long that ad can run. It's like 3 months, 6 months. I've seen billboards where companies have had things locked down for a year or longer, with a lot of people maybe wanting to get time in there. You have bigger companies that have more money to throw at advertising that could potentially want to eat up all that time or those spaces. So are they put to a maximum amount of time per ad that they can run over so many months?
So I'm not going to try to do the math with you on how many 10-second slots there would be in 3 months or 6 months or whatever else. But if I'm an advertiser and I want to buy a bucket of exposures, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And I might sign up not only for this one sign that Lamar has, but I might sign up for some other signs in other places. I might care if there's signs off 17 in Fredericksburg. I might be wanting to have people come to Dumfries or come to Rosie's or whatever, just because that destination is here. So to answer your question directly, we don't cap somebody. If they want to, McDonald's wants to come in and they want to sign up for a year's worth of 10-second ads, we'll sell them that, right? If somebody else wants to come in and lock in 3 months, or they want to have a limited number, because with a computer, we can have them instead of every minute, we can have them every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or every hour. We can do a lot of different things when you extrapolate the number of 10-second slots that we sell. And because they have a cost associated with them, most companies don't come in and say, I'm going to buy up all this ad. Now, the advantage, and I'll close with this to your question, that in most cases, if there's a static sign and we're strapping a vinyl over top of it, or there's a smaller sign like these, or they're called posters because they're 300 square feet as opposed to the big ones that are 400 or 672 square feet. If you wrap about vinyl around that and you buy 1 month's worth of ads and then you lock it in for 6 months or a year, we can't sell that ad space to anybody else, right? Because somebody's already bought it for a year. And there's a vinyl and there's no other ad that we can run. With a digital, we can run a lot of ads. And at the same time, it's fair because it comes down, I won't say it reduces the cost, but what it does is it provides small business, for example, a better option to go in and do stuff. It allows us to advertise your Little League. It allows us to do a lot of different things that we wouldn't be able to do on a static billboard. So, but I understand we have people all the time that complain and say, well, such and such a business has been on that billboard for 3 years. They have, because they bought that space, right? And there's only one space to sell. Whereas here, there's a lot of different spaces to sell over a period of a year or 6 months or whatever time frame you look at. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Only comment, not necessarily a question I have, but a comment is, you did address the driver distraction element with VDOT. So I know they have certain rules for that. One of the things I would want to see is with town staff is to work with the vendor to make sure that we keep light pollution at bay. So my problem with VDOT is their signs, their electronic signs are bright all the time and they don't reduce the light at night. So that'd be something that, the light pollution for the surrounding area, just make sure we keep that in mind for our residents.
Well, I'll comment on that. First of all, those are regulated by federal highway. And there's a driver distraction element in the federal highway regulations, and it's under the National Transportation Safety Board, and they regulate the brightness and the nits, as they call them. And so from that perspective, that's regulated by state law and on behalf of the feds to make sure that we're in compliance with those federal regulations in that regard. The other thing I will tell you about digital signs is that they're programmed to reduce the glare, if you will, and the light pollution. Billboard companies, I have to say, don't consider it light pollution, but I understand what you're talking about. Anything that projects light onto somebody else's property is light trespass. So all of the federal and state regulations on that govern whether you can are trespassing with that light on somebody else's property. And so those are the kind of things that are already addressed in the federal and state law.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda
Mr.
is.
Chairman, I think you have a presenter who wants to speak to it.
Sorry about that. No.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Brian Prater with Walsh Colucci. Here tonight on behalf of Clear Channel Communications, here to express support for the zoning text amendment. And thank you all for the consideration and hope that you recommend approval of this. Two minor clarifications from our perspective. One, I think the town attorney might have already corrected, but just in case, it's just wanted the preamble of what will be presented to town council for signs with permits issued on or prior to November 30th of 1993. As you saw from Mr. Tabor's presentation, a couple of the Clear Channel signs where the permit was issued on November 30th and the language only said prior to. So that was just a minor clarification. And the other was, and I believe the intent is to not have the comprehensive sign or conditional use permit apply in these instances. But I think we would be comfortable, given my personal experience on some comprehensive sign plans, if there was a clarification in this text that these electronic displays for the billboards that are relocated were not subject to that conditional use permit process. I don't believe that is the intent by staff, but I think we'd be more comfortable with a clarification just so there's no gray area there. But certainly support the zoning text amendment and thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Staff, next item is amendment to the Planning Commission bylaws.
Mr. Chairman, you haven't closed the public.
Oh, here, yes, we'll close it. quick vote to close the public hearing for the items for presentation for the 24-001 vote for the zoning text amendment. A quick vote, Commissioner Borka,
Approve.
Commissioner Beisel, approved, Commissioner Diaz, Commissioner Young, approved, Vice Chairman Nickerson, approved, and I approve 6-0 closing of the public hearing for that. Now moving forward on the amendment to the Planning Commission bylaw.
Do we have to vote on? We have to vote on.
Further clarification, I'm not really familiar with your processes, so you've closed the public hearing. Have you voted to make a recommendation to the town council?
At the end.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tabor, do you want to talk about the amendment to the bylaw?
So actually, our town attorney is here to speak to the bylaws amendments.
This will be very brief, members of the commission. Thank you for entertaining this topic in your meeting tonight. We sent out to you in advance a draft of some proposed changes to your bylaws. There weren't very many of them, and if you've had a chance to review the paperwork, what you would see is throughout the text that you were provided, there are going to be certain areas that were listed in red and underscored as well, though those would be additions. But the issues that were primarily addressed in the proposed amendments was to clarify what the authority of the commission was relative to controlling its own membership. That was number one. And then there were a couple other instances where the language of the bylaws exceeded what had been provided from the state to the local level. So it's not only the planning commission exceeded its authority, but acted probably beyond what even the town council could possibly do. So prior to tonight's meeting, we sent out the proposed amendments. Earlier still, we sent out very detailed comments with respect to where there were problems identified in the existing bylaws. I didn't want to go through those in a public setting, but those I think have been communicated in one form or another. So I'm happy to answer specific questions with respect to the few changes that were made, but we would like you to consider these. And in the event you haven't had a chance to review them as thoroughly as you want, we can continue this over to another meeting. And I would suggest in the instance that we do that, in addition to reviewing the proposed changes, you also consider where you think the bylaws may be a little bit deficient and you would like additional text added for future reference. And with that, I will conclude my remarks and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Point of clarity, just full disclosure, I did have a meeting with the town attorney and town staff about the bylaw. Most of the things that we talked about were, like what she mentioned, were in the state rules governing, and a lot of, there was some language in there that wasn't appropriate for the bylaws. There was language in there that carried over from one of the other boards that we had, so we were trying to make it more bespoke for the planning commission. So
Yeah.
I'll let everyone else review it first before we make any recommendations there.
And to the chairman's point, it does look like the bylaws for the planning commission replicates the bylaws of the BZA as well as the ARB. So there wasn't really, I think, a great deal of consideration to tailor the bylaws to the particular need of the particular body they were intended to serve. So that's why I think an extra look to see whether or not these bylaws are sufficient for your purposes would be a good thing to do.
Thank you. Next item. Open floor for the comprehensive plan update. Want to do any update?
Just briefly wanted to share that we will be holding stakeholder meetings with regard to the comprehensive plan update on Thursday and Friday of this week. And they are tailored to chapters of the comprehensive plan. And then we provided in your on your places a flyer for the first community meeting, which will be held on April 20th, Saturday, April 20th, from 10 to 2 during the farmers market, and the rain location will be the community center adjacent to the parking lot in the building here.
All right, before we vote on the zoning text amendment, I want to give everyone do an open forum for any of the commissioners. Commissioner Borka, anything for town staff?
Nothing.
Commissioner Beisel, anything for town staff open forum?
I think the signs sound nice, more interesting than a sheet sign.
Commissioner Diaz, anything for town staff? None? Commissioner Young, open forum, anything?
No comments, sir.
All right. Vice Chairman Nicholson,
No comment.
no comment? I have nothing. So we'll do a motion to vote for the text amendment. You have, anyone want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Second it?
Second.
All right, do a vote for 24-001 approval of the vote of the zoning text amendment for signs. Commissioner Borka? Approve. Commissioner Beisel?
Approve.
Commissioner Diaz? Commissioner Young? Approve. Vice Chairman Nicholson?
Approve.
And I approve 6-0 for the zoning text amendment. Do we have anything else for town staff? Nothing else on the agenda? We're good there. Motion to adjourn meeting?
So moved.
Was a second?
Second.
Commissioner Borka?
Approve.
Commissioner Young?
Approved.
Commissioner Beisel?
Approve.
Commissioner Diaz? Vice Chairman Nicholson?
Approve.
And I approve 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 7:45. See you next time.